بحمد ربي أبدأ المنيرة ثم الصلاة والسلام السيرة على نبي اسمه محمد أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد
أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده نصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. As I explained or detailed the actual motivating factor behind all of this, a friend of mine's wife has not yet accepted Islam, and when I asked her why, what's holding you back, her words to me were very shocking and very profound. She said that she's not convinced of the Prophet Muhammad. I was very devastated to hear that, and that's why I decided that I would like to do this seerah classes. I agreed to participate in this program so that inshallah I'm able to give, if I can, to the best of my ability, some kind of an explanation of the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hope that anybody who has these kind of concerns, anybody who feels like they're not convinced of the Prophet Muhammad, can see who he really was and who he truly was. We are now discussing the battle of Uhud. Battle of Badr is completed. There was about a year in between before the Battle of Uhud took place. Remember, for the Battle of Badr, the Quraysh were very poorly prepared because they expected the caravans just going to come back. And then they hear there's an imminent attack on the caravan, so they had to round up whoever they could and rush off to the battlefield. For the Battle of Uhud, there were four main motivating factors. Number one, there was the religious element, right? That they did not want their deen to go down. They wanted their polytheism to stay the same, right? Number two, there was the social concern, because they were disgraced and humiliated after the Battle of Badr, and they didn't want that status that they had to drop and diminish in the eyes of the people. Thirdly, there was a massive economic factor, because they kept sending caravans out to try and make money, because they'd lost quite a bit of soldiers, quite a few people in the Battle of Badr, and they wanted to make up for it. They wanted to try and accumulate as much as they could so that they could launch a proper attack on the Muslims. What they then did was they kept sending caravans out, and the Muslims kept hammering their caravans, kept hammering their trade caravans, and it was becoming expensive for them to have to deal with that. And then lastly was, like I said, they didn't want to lose their status as the Qurayshi tribe, because there was a big shift now in the dynamic of who's in control of the Arabian Peninsula. Everybody was now looking to this upcoming Muslim state, and the Quraysh wanted to hold on to power, right? So now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam catches wind through his spies and through his intelligence that they're preparing to launch an attack on the Muslims, and they want to fight. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends a Sahabi by the name of Hubab out, and his job is to go and collect this information. He found out exactly how many soldiers, approximately 3,000, women and children included. They had the whole, I don't know what to say, like the whole shebang with them, right? The ladies were beating the drums, it was battle cries, it was camels being slaughtered, it was a massive, massive plan. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was now thinking to himself, okay, now they've left Makkah, they're on their way. Do we go out and meet them somewhere, or do we, because obviously they found out like which route they're going to take, or do we wait in Medina and let them attack us? So a lot of detail went into this discussion, and a lot of the senior Sahaba weighed in and gave their views. Those who felt that no, we need to stay in Medina and defend Medina, thought that, the kuffar of Makkah brought the Quraysh, but they had a whole bunch of other neighboring tribes. And knowing the tribal system, it's going to become a power struggle, and they're going to start fighting about who's in charge and who's in control and who calls the shots and who must do what, and they're just going to fight among themselves and just pack up and go home. So I'd rather let them come and besiege Medina. That was number one. Number two is, if we are at home with our families, and we're seeing the enemy in front of us, and our families are right here next to us, we're going to fight very differently, because we have a lot more to lose immediately. The other one was that the Qurayshi army was going to enter Medina so if they were going to enter Medina, the women and children would have from within the walls safety to participate in the fighting in different ways. So they would kind of double up, because on the battlefield it's very open, and inside Medina it's very protected. These were some of the things that were mentioned. Also, you know, when you're in your hometown, for those who don't understand how urban warfare works, basically you're better off in your own city because you know exactly where to go and where to hide and how it works and how the roads are and where the best spots are, because that's where you come from, you know. So they thought, let's rather stay in Medina. If they come into Medina, we know the alleys, we know the pitfalls, we know where we can set up booby traps, we can do all these things from within Medina. We wouldn't need to expose ourselves outside. And then the younger Sahaba, and predominantly the Muhajirun, from Makkah, they were like, no, we go out on the battlefield, we meet them in open. Number one, if they come close to Medina, they have to walk through the Ansar's farms. They're going to destroy those farms. Number two, that we pledge that we will support the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and staying in Medina would be a kind of betraying that promise, you know, that we're willing to go to the ends of the earth, but now we're not leaving Medina. Lastly, they missed out on Badr, the younger Sahaba. Now it's a year later, they're a bit bigger, they're a bit more mature, they've heard all the stories, they're so excited and enthusiastic about an opportunity like that. So they were like, no, we want to go out to the battlefield and meet him. That's what I'm saying. The younger Sahaba felt, let's go out. And eventually, the majority of the Sahaba, of the Ansar and the Muhajirun, the senior Sahaba, they felt that if you're going to allow them the opportunity to even reach Medina, then you are kind of giving them a type of a victory already, because what about our intelligence? Why didn't we figure out that they're on their way? We stopped them halfway in Badr, you know, that kind of a thing. And the agreement was that we were going to march out, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is extremely intelligent. He uses a term called tawriyah. So what's the weather like in Cape Town, guys? How's things looking in Graafrenet? What's the weather like in Bloemfontein? So all the pit stops on the way to Cape Town, he will ask about that weather, because he's actually going to Durban. So the spies that are there will hear Cape Town, Cape Town, Cape Town, Cape Town, the route to Cape Town. They will send out little contingents, dispersing their power to try and waylay the Muslims there, but they're going to a whole different place. Do you understand? So he asks all these questions, deceives all the, so the word is khida', right? Where you speak the truth, tawriyah, you speak the truth, you ask questions, the spies get a completely different perception of what's going to happen, and misinformation is then given to them. But you didn't actually speak any misinformation. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes a secret path to Uhud, which they've decided was going to be like on the way, for the kuffar are going to pass through Uhud to get to Medina, and rather let us go and meet them there. It's open, it's very strategic, and you will understand why going forward. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the way, secret road, the Quraysh army wouldn't know that they're going there, because they're looking for the Sahaba in other places because of the tawriyah, the questions that were asked. Ibn Salul, Ubay bin Sulul, one of the greatest hypocrites, he withdraws from the Muslim army with approximately 1/3 of the force. So now the Muslims are on 67% of their force. It feels like a big blow to their morale. But like I said, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants things to happen, it happens, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam splits the army into three parts when they get to Uhud, right? Splits the army into three parts. You've got the Muhajirun on the front, and you've got the Aus and the Khazraj as well in two groups, right? So there's three main bodies of the Muslim army. Again, something that wasn't known to the Arabs at the time. And then also Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had the Mount Aynain, which was on the other side of Uhud, and it was to protect. So when you're coming into Uhud, you had to go from the back. You had to pass through the pass of Aynain. So you couldn't just get into Uhud from the back. So they protected their rear, you know, like that. So he stationed a battalion of archers, of which Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu was one. Stationed them there, and the instruction was very clear: do not move from your position until I tell you so. Right? That was the instruction. And the objective was protect the back of the army from being attacked by anyone, right? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam starts straightening the rows, and the kuffar walk into the battlefield of Uhud. And we will now continue in the next lesson, inshallah, the early stages going into the thick of battle and how things suddenly took a turn. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and understanding. Very, very many lessons to learn from this. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with understanding. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah bihamdi. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.
بحمد ربي يبدأ المنيرة ثم الصلاة والسلام السيرة على نبي اسمه محمد أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد